Hello and welcome. This is your Sage Time. I'm Lillian, and I'm bringing you a reading here today for the sign of Capricorn. However that presents itself to you in your life, in your natal chart, or if you're simply here for the message, the tones, the resonance, the words, the activations within you, and the clearings. This is the space for that, and welcome. This is a journey today. It's a journey every day. But as I prepared for today's message, when I was told that I would get to do a message, the videos that I record are privileges that are gifted to me. If that privilege doesn't present itself with the supporting staff, so to speak, that bring it, then there's no message, there's no video. And sometimes that's days and weeks and months. Other times it's more frequent. So, as I was informed, I would have the privilege and opportunity to bring you, all of you, a message today. My first question, of course, was, whom wants to be represented in this reading today? And of course, the cards present themselves really quickly, which was wonderful. And a stone immediately presented itself. The stone of, what are you called again? Kunzite. There it is. Pink kunzite. A beautiful stone, a new stone in my family. So I looked it up. Ooh, it matches my nails. I'm such a girl. I love it. I looked it up, and kunzite is a guardian. Brings the guardian spirits forward in both physical and spiritual travels. A protector. So that's who's present. Also, in the background, you can hear some beautiful compilations of sounds and musics by the YouTube channel called Navane's Shamanic Journeys. And everything, as always, is listed in the description box with links or references on how to look things up yourself. This particular one that came forward, and I was playing it as I was getting everything prepared, is called, this particular song compilation is called Activate, Flow, and Inner Clarity. Now here's why this is so perfect, because of course, when we move to the rhythm and in accordance with the design of the higher realms, the pieces, the lines, if you imagine a three-dimensional sketch of a geometric design, all the lines that connect to any given cross-section, any given point, start to come in and illuminate, highlight themselves. So that music presented itself. Kunzite, which is a stone that I haven't quite connected with since I bought it a while ago, presented itself. And these today herbs wanted to be present for a tea, and a particular essential oil, and of course the cards. And they each have a reason and an energy and a signature that present themselves. And when I'm in this state, in this journeying state, beginning the preparatory, my left brain logical memorization, access to memorization parts of me turns off, so I don't remember all the things, all the scientific details and so forth. And it's wonderful because I know it'll present itself. All this is important that I'm sharing with you, as you know, because it's landing the way it does. Okay. And what's great is after all of these different pieces of your reading today, along with it being a Capricorn reading, presented themselves, I started to look up just little highlights on the computer and references and so forth that I have in my books. And they all were overlaying one another, as we'll see. There's this whole book that I'm going to start off our journey with that has some passages that really exemplify the Saturnian. Saturn is coming up, of course. It's housed in Capricorn, in its natural, oh, what's the word? Well, it's housed there. That's its home. So Capricorn, and Capricorn's been coming up with others in conversation with me. The old paradigm of Capricorn versus what's breaking through its shell, what's disrobing the old outfits and veils of personification to reveal a new Saturn paradigm, one that works in collaboration, in Argentine tango dance formation with his opposition, the moon, the mover of the waters, of the womb, of the earth. The new Saturn knows. The Saturn that's that chick within the egg that's developing and growing and showing its new formation. It knows it's encapsulated within a shell that is the concept of Saturn, the compression, the oppression, the what is necessary to activate and invigorate the life force, the chi, the prana within that developing chick, such that when she gets to the point of reaching completion of her development and growth within the world that is the shell, she has to break free because that compression is just too much. The birthing of the child, the contraction and compression through the passageway of the birth canal, not a comfortable feeling, must be done, and it activates the spinal cord of the newborn infant, activating parts of the neural system, vitamin K in the lower GI, the digestive system, and all these other parts, the immunity and so forth, that physiologically and energetically and spiritually, neurologically, of course, enhance this new life, this new being into life, this new Saturn that says, oh, I'm not just the shell, I'm also the chick. So Saturn, who are you becoming? You with a Saturn within you, with a house of Capricorn within you. How are you shifting and altering and changing? And also what veils are being dropped and dissolved and disintegrated into the earth and through the cosmos to be reorganized, composted, made into something new and nutrient rich. So let's start with the tea. We've got an herbal tea. I've got my little lists. I've got my sticky notes. That has bitter melon. I have to show you the bitter melon. I love bitter melon. Let's see if I can get a good look at these guys. Aren't they gorgeous? Of course, to use with tea, I used the mortar and pestle to, So bitter melon, it cools excess heat, tonifies liver, and dispels damp in Chinese medicine, which is its origins, its root. It's a very hard and, of course, bitter root, I believe we're using. And it nourishes blood. It supports chi flow within which helps circulate the blood and so forth as well. And it's a kidney and liver tonifier. Now, that's what it was. One of the first things that came up for me before I even started picking out herbs was liver, and how Saturn is very much demonstrated through the TCM, the Chinese medicine theory and narrative of the organ and the energetic organ of the liver. Liver will store anger when it's had too much damp or too much heat, too much stress. Also, anger will be organized and compressed and depressed within and around the liver when the grief process isn't allowed to fully surface and reveal itself, particularly the parts of loss and sadness. So when we depress our emotions, liver is understood to push out depression. Oh, and anger. Of course, there needs to be anger. That's one of the stages of grief. So bitter melon is here to support us in releasing that anger, releasing those griefs, letting us till it underneath the surface of the soil and bring it up and letting it air out. Ooh, which brings me to another thing that my little pup is on the ground dancing. So he's excited about this message and he's rolling his spine on the carpet and he's saying, yeah, it feels good to get it all out. The other thing that came up while I was prepping, one of the first ones, I noticed one of my plants, which is a night or a shade growing plant, very important, wasn't doing so well. And I went over, I checked the soil, and the soil was okay. But the plant instantly sent me this strong scent of ammonia. And I was like, ammonia, kidneys, kidney compromise. That's when we start smelling ammonia in our urine. And what's affiliated with kidney? Fear. Fear that perpetuates over activity, over movement, over reaching, over doing, and over experiencing due to fear programs or feeling fear. It's that whip at your back and chasing something else. I call it the being chased by wolves and chasing dragons. Chasing the dream and being chased by wolves represent a very old school, old world Capricorn and Saturnian age of Aries kind of thing. Which brings me to another point that was brought up was Saturn. Saturn, in part, one of the masculine part of Saturn, one of his roles, which is very dominant in Saturn in our world, one of his roles is linear time. But his opposition, the moon, who works with the waters and the flow, our moon also works very strongly with the mini moons of Neptune. Neptune being way further out in our solar system, its orbit. Those moons collaborate with the moons within our solar system, as well as receiving information like a satellite. Moons are satellites, receiving information from other moons that get their light from their suns. So Neptune is a satellite of satellites. It works with the waters that are nourished by the suns, respectively, and relays these feminine with masculine circulatory rhythms, cadences, shapes, cultures, social structures, growth structures, ecosystems. and their structures. So Saturn of the linear time, which really was, I'm hearing the advent of that came into play on our planet during the age of Aries. The age of Aries, we can remember that's a Roman rule. That was the offshoot of patriarchy, birthed from the age of Taurus, the age of the Amma, the feminine goddess rule, which my guides have shown me many times over, as beautiful as the feminine aspect was of that time, it also became overtly ambitious, domineering, and imbalanced, which is how the polarity swing brought us the age of Aries, which then, of course, bled into the age of Pisces that we are leaving now. An age of Pisces that has the yin and the yang playing together, working, trying to create a counterbalance, but still limited within a shape. Okay? And in the age of Taurus, Saturn embraced time in the feminine, in the circle. But I'm hearing that Saturn, time, and all that was interconnected with that, all of our experiences with that, was in a loop that just kind of dug in and carved itself more deeply and more deeper. And so here, what they're showing me, Saturn is constructing a new paradigm of time, one that is a fractal, one that is a spiral, and also has those fractals, those minute details within the timeline of spiraling, not linear, not circular, those stops in conversation where we fractal in or out, those pauses in movement and creating and construction where we spiral in or spiral out. It can look to somebody who's very stuck in linear time, in square shapes of this old pattern of Saturn. It can look like chaos, but when there's an opening and a surrender to it, and a stepping back and taking in, and a not figuring it out, but dropping those mentalings into the knowing of trust that resides when we anchor ourselves within the heart portal of ourselves to the universe, the heart of the soul that is the universe, the great soul. There is an understanding without needing to define, but it can come through. And then there is not a compulsion and a moving through and with that integrates the intersecting lines and shapes and influences of that which is around us. It's beautiful. Can you see the dance, the shapes, the colors, the swirls? You can. So much goodness in this. I don't even know where this reading's going to fully take us. Okay, so I spoke about bitter melon. The other ingredient in our tea is ashwagandha. Ashwa, an Ayurvedic herb. Ashwa meaning horse. Gandha meaning scent. I was thinking pheromones that of a horse's virility. How very masculine. How very next level Saturn while integrating from what was. I also wrote down ashwagandha is great for decalcifying the pineal gland, of course, which connects us opening to our third eye, clarifying that. Unification and peace to spirit, as well as an adaptogen for stress. What does it say? I can't read my own writing. And then finally, Damiana leaf. One of my favorite herbs to work with. Damiana leaf opens the heart to facilitate connections with others. It increases intuition and supports dream work. It is a nervine. It relaxes the sympathetic as well as inducing a stronger potency of the parasympathetic. Okay, so hold on. We've got our tea. Connect through the olfactory, letting it activate memories within the minds that are truly present within our ancestry and the ancestry of all other inhabitants on this world, because we are connecting with the heart. And when we do that, all the ancestry and all their histories, all their wisdoms, all their knowledge, all their sacrifices, all their growths, all their truths, all their fallacies, and all the integrations present themselves. And in reverence, there is nothing less than understanding and gratitude. Oh. I love that. Okay, let's do an overall card for the message before I get into the passages that want to be read. I'm using the Sacred Earth Oracle. And hopefully, if I remember and am reminded, Spirit, thank you, I will read at the end of this reading the passage that goes with it. This is going to be such a good reading. It already is. Hello, Sacred Earth Oracle. Thank you. What would you like us to hear, see, feel, know? There we go. I just want to, okay, here we go. Alchemy. You can go ahead and take a screenshot if you'd like. Okay. Now, the passages that I'm going to read through are from a fictional book, actually. Another surprise to me that I was called to read from this. It's a series that I'm actually reading right now. This is book 2 of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And it's entitled Words of Radiance. Now, of course, this individual, this author, builds a world beyond. And without getting too much into the whole thing, the words that he's using that I'll be reading from, some of them are defining or describing aspects that can only be understood in the story and then the context. However, I'm being guided to share with you, it's important to feel the words, how they land with you, and of course apply the words, not necessarily how they're being applied, but how the story itself is revealing itself. Maybe not how it's being written, but how it wants to reveal itself. And there are 2 passages I'm going to read from that really, well, I don't even know. I recognize that they represent Saturn in Capricorn and the moon in Cancer, and I can see and feel, I'm probably going to have to re-listen to this video as well to really catch it, but it was very clearly marked to read this. So here we go. The first one's pretty short. What is a woman's place in this modern world? Jasna Colin's words read. I rebel against this question, though so many of my peers ask it. The inherent bias in the inquiry seems invisible to so many of them. They consider themselves progressive because they are willing to challenge many of the assumptions of the past. They ignore the greater assumption that a place for a woman must be defined and set forth to begin with. Half of the population must somehow be reduced to the role arrived at by a single conversation. No matter how broad that role is, it will be by nature a reduction from the infinite variety that is womanhood. I say that there is no role for women. There is, instead, a role for each woman, and she must make it for herself. For some, it will be the role of scholar. For others, it will be the role of a wife. For others, it will be both, and yet for others, it will be neither. Do not mistake me in assuming I value one woman's role above another. My point is not to stratify our society. We have done that far too well already. My point is to diversify our discourse. A woman's strength should not be in her role, whatever she chooses it to be, but in the power to choose that role. I'm going to read that again. A woman's strength should not be in her role, whatever she chooses it to be, but in the power to choose that role. It is amazing to me that I even have to make this point, as I see it is at the very foundation of our conversation. And I would like to add the power to choose that role and to choose again. So that is a feminine passage that I was brought to in this book. This is a very big book. This is 1,001 pages, I think it is, of writing. And here is a troubled masculine. Zeth Sansan Vayano, truthless of Shivanar, sat atop the highest tower in the world and contemplated the end of all things. The souls of the people he had murdered lurked in the shadows. They whispered to him. If he drew close, they screamed. The highest tower in the world, hidden in the tops of the mountains, was perfect for contemplation. If he had not been bound to an oath stone, if he had been another man entirely, he would have stayed here. The only place in the east where the stones were not cursed, where walking on them was allowed. This place was holy. Bright sunlight shone down to banish the shadows, which kept those screams to a minimum. The screamers deserved their deaths, of course. They should have killed him, Zeth. I hate you. I hate everyone, he thinks. Glories within. What a strange emotion. He did not look up. He would not meet the gaze of the God of gods, but it was good to be in the sunlight. There were no clouds here to bring the darkness. This place was above them all. Urithru ruled even in the clouds. He sat on that edge, right at the top, feet swinging over a drop of 100 massive stories and a plummet down the mountainside below. Glass sparkled on the smooth surface of the flat side there. Glass windows, facing east, toward the origin. The first time he had visited this place, just after being exiled from his homeland, he hadn't understood just how odd these windows were. Back then, he'd still been accustomed to gentle high storms, rain, wind, and meditation. He had fought an impossibility. The void bringers are no more, they had told him. The spirits of the stones themselves promised it. The power of old are no more. The nights radiant are fallen. We are all that remains. All that remains, truthless. Have I not been faithful? Zeth shouted, finally looking up to face the sun. His voice echoed against the mountains and their spirit souls. Have I not obeyed, kept my oath? Have I not done as you demanded of me? The killing, the murder. He blinked tired eyes. Screams. What does it mean if the shamanat are wrong? What does it mean if they banished me in error? It means the end of all things, the end of truth. It would mean that nothing made sense and that his oath was meaningless. It would mean he had killed for no reason. I'm being called to show this again. Alchemy. Choice. Choose and choose again. Do you feel the deep weeping of that grief coming from the liver, coming from the depressed and repressed parts of loss that never got to be felt? Exposed, shown, seen, heard, understood the screams. The ghost dancer. Hidden in the midst, there is so much detail, so many parts and layers and images embedded upon the ghost dancer that do not belong to her. And she is within, between, and amongst so many realms, trying to uphold her own definition, not that what was painted on her, which was handprinted and imprinted, branded upon her. The feminine of the masculine. The Saturn with his moon. A concubine to one another. Shows the wild woman who dances the truth of herself, her fires, her ferocity, her rage, her beauty, her grace. And she dances it beneath the sun and she says, "Look at me, divine masculine. Not to adore me, nor adorn me. Look at me because I dance, I beat, I scream, I love, I weep. I give birth and I love and I nourish to the rhythm and the shape that is also you, because together we create." Saturn. Anything more that wants to come through from the... There's one more here. You got something to say, you can say it for sure. Let's organize. Oh, I love it. There we go. You're just trying to get in the right place. Taming the wind. Listening to the songs and the sounds and the messages of the wind. The wind carries communication from the trees, from the humans, from the plants, from everything to everyone. And when we let ourselves feel those winds and breathe it in, we may hear and know the communications of all that are participating. There it is. I was wondering. And that is the masculine. Here with the keyword, the journey. And you can see there is now, whoops, hold on, a greater full communication wanting to be heard and integrated and ongoing between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. The Fae are coming in, and they're somber is a word that's coming through, but they're crying, and they're not crying for us. They're letting in the rages, the mishaps, the mistakes, the horrible crimes against one another and against the flora and the fauna. They're letting in the grief that we haven't allowed ourselves to fully open up to. The grief that comes from a place of acknowledging the harms that we've done, whether intentional or unintentional, directly or through plausible deniability. And they're feeling that grief that's stuck and or hidden within us, trying to move through and circulate with our chi, the liver opening up and letting that go. They're feeling that with us because they know that feeling the end result of the release and the awareness of those processes, feeling that with us in tandem helps create a passageway. It tunnels a way to the future, the better future. They become, by holding the grief, the acknowledgement, the humility that comes with understanding our own roles, even when it felt and seemed and even was the role as the receiver of harm and violation and hurt from others, feeling the role of that other person through the awareness and the clarity of what has been done and the hurt and harm and the empathy of experiencing. They know that that brings, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's very important. In short, feeling forgiveness of self that would exist in a perpetrator, a predator, feeling that self-forgiveness as them creates a magnetic and a vacuum that pulls them through the process, their own process that they must do. We aren't doing it for them, but we are experiencing it for them to some degree, maybe to much degree, depending on how rigid those roots and infrastructure are stuck and molded together. And this is a way to the future. I think this says fairies of the future. You can see they're all looking ahead, and they're working with, in the background, you can see these other shapes, and some are mellifluous and uncaring, negligent, obstinate, all the different expressions of the shadow of ourselves. And they're like, yeah, we got you, we're here with it. And we're looking to the future and holding that clear, clean canvas, the white canvas, within ourselves, as ourselves. You can see fake take shape and color based on what they're working with. But their wisdom is anchored within what they're all about. Fairies of the future. Anything else from the Fairy Oracle? Interesting that this reading, I thought it was going to be so long. There was so much that wanted to come through. I must have spoke it through very quickly. Or, I don't know. Things and things of things. Okay. Oh, there's that weep bubble, that grief bubble surfacing again. So we've got Solus, the sun. I'm going to read it first. Tahara of the waters and Iris of the rainbows. Solus is representing that masculine Saturn energy here. And the word solace, right? That is a word of expressing comfort to another from a place of empathy and care and presence, holding the light of resolve and future rebirth, but not imposing that upon the one that is still in the darkness, that is still grieving, that needs to complete every minute detail and nuance of their grieving process, and given the times that we're in, that of the ancestors that they are called and contracted to work with. This is big work, you guys. And this is the masculine. And then here is, again, the feminine counterpart. And this particular feminine goddess of the waters, she moves into the waters, the emotions and the consciousnesses held within those emotions, the thought forms that are neither solid nor etheric entirely by nature, but are also both. And they carry the histories, but they also carry the hopes that were born from histories of experience. And she lifts it up out of the great pool and she observes it as it flows through her hands, because she lets it flow. She does not allow it to take great shape, but she knows by observing it with this gentle care, with the wisdom of the sun in his solace and the purity of intention in her heart and creation in her womb, she observes it and listens. And she hears in every single water molecule that runs through her fingers, she observes centuries of memories of infinite, countless beings, plants, humans, tigers, insects, the wind, earth. But you can see, I mean, this is serious work, but in the background, she's got friends to remind her that there is play in this too, and sensuality. So yeah, huddle up and cry and scream, but also feel yourself and feel yourself feeling yourself, the sensuality of tactile touch, movement. There's so many here that want a reminder of all the parts of all the parts. And they're also coming through with the water as well, in expressing and communicating. She is the witness, and she is the representation of unconditional love, whatever each one of those water molecules shows her. Because each water molecule isn't the story, just like you aren't the story. It's simply a container of it and a revealer of it. But to reveal the story, we need someone to witness it. And it's important to discern who's witnessing it. We may not always get to choose the sympathetic and empathic feminine holding us, seeing it. We can be that though. And we can create that within us by, if we don't have it outside of us, noting, oh, that person is exemplifying what it isn't. I know that. I can feel it. So what it isn't to be a witness, loving and unconditional, allowing for everything to be exposed and seen and appreciated, valued, understood, and so forth. Forgiven. Forgiven is a side effect of understanding. It's not the point. The point is understanding fully. And so we see somebody or many somebodies or the world as it presents itself as not giving us that. We use those as little gems and flip it and go, well, what would it be in contrast to all these little things and demonstrations that aren't unconditional love, witness, care, holding, and allowing. And this brings about Iris of the Rainbows. I'm not sure if I remember what all the images in this card want to represent, nor what the description says in the book. But I can tell you right now that the iris of the rainbows, the iris, the center of the eye, that's the pupil. The iris is the part of around the eye, the color of the eye. And the rainbow is the collaborative integration of the darkness and the light. That's what gives us spectrum. Color is all the light, or all light is all the colors. Let me try that again. Light is absent of all the colors. Darkness is all the colors. And when they come together, they're able to lift and highlight distinct and different ones and give them form. The darkness, light illuminates. And she's looking at that there in her left hand, observing the rainbow and how it comes to be and all the stories within every particle and wavelength of light and interplay with dark that gives it that color. Just like the water, each one has its own hundreds and thousands of years of story, even more so, right? Yeah. And she's got friends, again, helping her and assisting her. That's what we're up to, you guys. That's part of this Capricorn dying off, slothing off the old and the new. And it feels raw when we shed our skin, does it not? Even though it's already formed, it hasn't been exposed to the air around us, to the world, the construct that it lives in. Okay. Let's read Alchemy. All right. Here's the card again. We'll see if I can't bring it up nice and close, and hopefully it focuses. All right, the earthly meaning. It is up to you to acknowledge an obstacle as impermanent. Pardon me. Regardless of who is to blame, it is your responsibility to defy a false limitation. A quirk or idiosyncrasy is a strength. Bring it out and own it. Individuality is a precious gem. Throw your woes into the smelting pot and craft them into powerful tools. Experiment with what you have and give it value. Life is perpetual movement, and yet life is also still. Life is change, and yet it is also unchanging. You are part of this moving stillness, changing and unchanging through time and eternity. Something is moving within a still part of you. The moon within Saturn, the waters within the physical construct. That was my side note. And yet, something is still within the moving part of you. And yet something is still within the moving part of you. Meditate on this. Feel complete oneness in your being. And here's a nice little metaphor. Rocks are formed and reformed in the crust and upper mantle of our planet. When melted rock in the form of magma or lava cools, it becomes igneous rock. Over time, igneous rock erodes and reforms as sedimentary. Secondary rock. Heat and pressure. There's that. Heat and pressure deep within the earth transform both igneous and sedimentary rock into metamorphic rock. Even the most steadfast, most long-standing objects formed in our planet's infancy can be transformed. Do not accept anything as a given. Transform any tenacious, hindering habits, doubts, or beliefs by working on them deep within your center. The alchemic fire at your core is a constant. That's that wild woman card with the fire. Use it to transform any rubble that may be hindering you into precious gems. Turn lead into gold. Let your true self surface. Refine, polish, and respect its beauty, strength, and value. Again, refine, polish, and respect your beauty, strength, and value. Thank you, friends. I love you so much. Thank you for your likes, your subscribes, and thank you for joining me on this journey. Aho.